Okay, well, this canvas was my thinking earlier. That's fine, it's stained, I can use it anytime. But as the day went on, I did some other thinking, and I decided to do something more west coasty, and maybe not with a knife. I just felt like drawing something, sketching something. The idea was going to be originally something that had the feel of, maybe one of the islands on the Inside Passage off the west coast of British Columbia, or one of the local lakes. Nonetheless, a lot of bedrock, very solid, maybe the bedrock being the meat and potatoes, with some spires, not windswept trees so much, but some evergreens, and then something in the distance. And once I sat in front of that canvas, I really just wanted to make sure I'm recording. I really just started to draw things in a very weak way, not decisive gestures. And I thought, hey, maybe I'll use an arbutus tree, which is fine, I would say, if it was a larger painting, or if the painting were about an arbutus tree. Now what I have, to me, kind of looks just like, deciduous trees. And to me, nothing shows British Columbia like a good conifer, like some evergreens. So I had a plan this morning, and before too long my ADD kicked in, and I changed my mind. That's why I decided to sketch. I've always had that. There was no such term as ADD when I was young, but it was certainly on my report cards as a student. Phil could do so much better if he could just concentrate on his work. So, anyway, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's been through that, but it's important. It's an important skill to try to come up with a plan and stick to it. Now, that being said, once I have a plan in place, I'll stick to it. I have no problem committing to it. But I have to have a lot of faith in what I'm committing to. Now, what you're looking at right now, the composition, well, put it this way, the composition is not complete. But, it has the makings of certainly a successful composition, because the space division is good, subject matter is okay, etc. But it's not sort of the vision that I had. And I want to sort of chase that vision down a little bit. So, the space division might be fine, but the content itself is not what I'm after. I'm going to close my window here because it's rush hour. And there's a lot of traffic going by, and that's just noisy. There, that's a little quieter now. So typically when I come up with a composition, I'll sit back, sort of, what is it, 8-10 feet back, and try to gauge the composition from the same distance as the end viewer of the painting would, So whatever, 4 to 10 feet, I don't know. Doesn't matter. a good composition is still a good composition, no matter, you know, where you view it from. But the composition needs to be, it needs to be sound, it needs to be comfortable. I don't like things to be too comfortable. But basically something that somebody would recognize easily and say, you know, that's kind of attractive. Now, I like the idea of bedrock. That's very much what I like about a lot of the shoreline where I live. It's bedrock. Within bedrock, there are designs, you know. It's the folded and broken crust of the earth. Rears its head above the water, and there's design within it. What I ended up with here is just a bunch of boulders. And it's not congealing very well, you know. And you can see that I was very insipid. Oh, look at that, 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 look at that. Like, it's just kind of boring. I need to give it more strength. I don't want to make a highly detailed small painting, a 16 by 20. I need this to be stronger. My idea is, by the time I have it sketched in and washed in, I still want it to be strong enough and loose enough and without too much detail so that I'm still comfortable with using the knife. Even though on this canvas I might use a brush, don't know, haven't decided. So it's kind of a pretty picture to me at the moment. I like the pretty picture, but I like some motion too, and it's a little bit weak right now. So let's just, okay, for one thing, my waterline started off there. You can see where all my rocks that I put in there, they ended about there. And I'm not a fan of that. Because I want the painting to be, you know, and this is something, before you decide where the light's coming from, you have to decide what is the painting about, okay? If the painting is all about where the light is coming from, fine, but you still have to come up with a good composition. In this one, I want to make a decent composition. I want to capture the flavor of Evergreen's rock structure, and that's a biggie because this is going to play a very big role in the painting. And I'm already pretty sure in the back of my mind the light's going to come from behind us and upper right, shining down on these things. I could be wrong. Actually, I could very well be wrong. But the good thing is I don't have to decide that. All right. But okay, so I changed this where the water meets the rocks. I've dropped it down a little bit, maybe whatever, 3/4 inch or something. I want to make these rocks more important. I want to do away with these deciduous looking trees. I would like some spires, you know, not those tortured windswept trees of the actual West Coast that grow on those rocky beds, you know, those bedrock facing the actual Pacific Ocean, but more sort of in the interior passage between Vancouver Island and the mainland, so they're somewhat protected to some degree anyway. So they're kind of tame. But let's do this. Let's just stop with our playing around. Okay? I know it's not a line, but I pretty much drew it as a line. And I've made it very dark. I'm being a bit bold because you can see that I drew the other drawing in, or sketched it in a little bit lighter, and I can wipe it off mostly with my white rag here. There's no way of getting this wiped off. Oh, I will a little bit, but this is going to be strong. So I'm committing to it. If I continue to make sketches, you know, I did the first one, I'll do this one. If I do this and I'm still not happy with it, this sketch is so strong, then I'll just take the canvas, and if I'm not happy with it, I'll just stain the whole thing, because that's going to get rid of these charcoal lines, at least for the most part. Okay, that's enough blithering for a moment. Let's just see if we can come up with something sort of interesting here. Placement of trees. This is going to be very important. This area here is going to be very important. And we're going to come up into here and then over to here. Sky is going to be fairly strong. So we're doing this again, coming across diagonally. Light down to rock, down here. Okay. I can't talk and think, so I'm just going to have to think for a moment here. And you know what? I'm going to back up and think. Because if you don't back up, you will tend to fixate. And if you fixate, your thinking will be out of context for the composition as a whole. Okay. Yes, they're triangles for the moment. They're not going to stay that way. But that's the start. That's the beginning. Okay. Number one evergreen. Pretty sure I'm going to have a little bit of trunk showing there. Pretty sure I'm going to want that. Oop, that lined up with that line. That was kind of dumb. Let's erase that a little bit and that a little bit, and let's cut that under a bit. Okay, and now let's do that and that. Again with the white rag. I call this the white rag because I'm going to pretend that it used to be white. And now it's so covered with charcoal. It's not white anymore. All right. That one's a little bit fatter. Actually, let's put a short one, cutting that off. Okay, so we have these spires. I don't just want to lay the tallest trees here because if I do that, we're going to have very dark colors coming down, repeating this. I don't want that. I would like, all of the rock, the highest point of the bedrock is here. I would like the highest part of the strength of the foreground to be in a little bit here. If this were a long painting, more panoramic, and the right-hand side of it were to continue off to the right for another foot, for example, I would use this as a frame for the main feature, which would end up being over here. In this case, it's only this narrow, and it's going to occupy a lot of important space here. So this actually becomes part of the focal area, right? The big drama between this dark tree, the sky lunging up to the right from that, and then being repeated, broken by this tree, from separating this light from this light. But we have drama there, and then where the tree ends and the rock hits again, we have more yet. So we'll have strength here as well. Okay, there's a lot of triangles there, and that's frankly a little bit boring, and we don't have to worry about that yet. Pick your fights as you work your way through the painting. Now, I would like to have something more in the distance there. We'll close that. Maybe a bit of trunk showing there. Maybe a bit there. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. And maybe something around here. Maybe. They're thoughts, you know? They're thoughts and suggestions. They don't have to stay. But as long as you have those visual indicators there, it can help you with your general composition. A bit of a branch sticking out there, maybe. Maybe something like that. Now, we get past these rocks, and there's more, in your imagination, more, or in my imagination, more water behind it. Do I want to show it? I don't think so. I think what I'd like to do is just think of the idea there may be water behind it, or more rock. But I think I might just put in a few lines that, see, this goes down, that goes up, kind of oppose this. So have this rock, the strength of the rock coming out here. Behind that, maybe we look at a distant mountain. We don't need to show the water behind there. I think we're about right. Okay, that's too many little jiggy boos there, and we don't need all that. It's okay. That's stuff to figure out later. I don't actually have a thought for the design in this rock right now. I believe I would like to not just have a rock face, but also have, you know, this rock face, this is bedrock, right? But from bedrock, as it decomposes, boulders actually cleave off of it and land in the water. And if that water is shallow enough, adjacent to your shoreline, parts of them will stick up. So sometimes it works quite well as giving it more dimension in the foreground, to add in some boulders here, or maybe just one or three, I don't know, something like that. But what I'd like right now is to come up with some sort of design here in this bit of bedrock that will be interesting and give strength. Okay. I don't think I like that. I don't think I like that. This looks a bit funny. That's okay. I'm not worried about that. Just laying down the initial impressions right now. And obviously this branch lines too much up with that mountainside, so look at that. Getting messy right away. tempted to put a short, young evergreen here, but I don't think I will. I don't know yet. Again, that's something we'll decide later. So if this is a powerful piece coming forward, and you go over that cleft of rock to this knob of rock, which is part of the same bedrock, then maybe it doesn't hurt to do this, because it really helps to bring the water up to the rock, helps to bring the trees down to the water. You know, gives us some sense of shape. You know, you need those lines in there to decide where you're going to put your shadows, obviously. No, not really. No. I'm getting a bit busy in the wrong places here. Now, you can see I'm not being too fussy with my charcoal. I'm going to be outlining. I'm going to be laying some outlines in here using ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. And as I refine the sketch, I will also refine the completed sketch with my brush and matte paint, thinned off heavily with turpentine. So much, well, enough to make it opaque by lines, but not so much that they have a sort of a tangible viscosity. I want them to be kind of, I want that paint to be kind of runny a little bit, just a little bit. I don't think I'll put rock in the foreground. That's how I'm seeing it at the moment. But I do want a division here. If this is, say, whatever, well, say it's 4 inches. I would like to have a line at the sort of 3-inch mark. Okay, 3 inches from the bottom, just as a guide. That already tells me that this is going away from us. We'll have a little more verticality here, and then we flatten out a little bit as we go behind that line. It's just a line. You don't have to see it, but I do, because I'm responsible for how this thing goes. And we have a strong horizontal shoreline, another line in here. Maybe I shouldn't worry too much about making a sweeping sky. Maybe my sky should cut across there like that. You know, something like that, and maybe poking in down here. I don't know. We're gonna play with it. That is all I'm doing for this sketch right now. I'm not going to do a whole bunch at all until before I actually just get my paint in. Now, this is not the highlands. This is not going to be more distant hills. It's really intended to be sky. I'm not saying I'm going to go with these lines. I'm just throwing them in there right now for future suggestion. Next time I look at it, that sky might actually explode from here. In fact, I've just backed up and looked at it, and I'm pretty sure that's what I'd like. I would like some life in this sky. I don't want it to be flat. So again, I'm going to take my white rag here and wipe off what I don't need. Okay, that's a pretty basic composition, but I actually quite like it. It's rugged. It has movement, it has strength, good space division, well balanced, etc. Is it etc.? Yes, it's etc. 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 Here, that line. Let's soften that line. I don't mind this. I don't mind this leaving the canvas running off the top. We got a lot of this. No harm in having a bit of this. Let me square the camera off with the canvas so that you can see more accurately what I'm up to. At least you can see things in proportion. The sketch that I had on there before I changed it, because they were bushes and deciduous trees, for the size of the canvas, sure, you can make a nice painting out of it. That's not what I want to do. I don't, yeah, of course I want to make a nice painting, but I felt it was very weak, especially because there wasn't structure in the rock. They were just boulders. So you start out with a weak sketch, and things only get weaker from there. Now at least, we have a strong sketch. Hopefully we can maintain that. We'll see you soon, guys.